Welcome to DIY Squaredrop Camper Build Part 7. So, I made a big mistake, and this is the result of me fixing it. Hopefully it's good. You'll see how we got there. So, in the last video you saw that I put in the insulation, as well as glued down the 3/4 inch plywood to the interior 1/4 inch plywood. So in this video, I'm prepping the surface here and removing all little glue marks and excess foam so that I can lay the outer wall piece on top. So the mistake I made was that the outer piece, while I did make it go 1.25 inches below my actual frame, because that will sit on the outside of the floor, I did not leave 2.25 inches on top free so that my wall spars that connect each wall together on the trailer can sit in there on top. So in this video, I put in the exterior wall, and like I said, I did leave it an overhang so that it sits over the floor on the bottom. But on the top, I need to route out and fix that situation. So as you can see here, once again, I'm cleaning up all of the excess foam and any imperfections in the wood that'll make anything pop up right before I glue on the outer wall piece. I have my little square set to the proper length of the floor, so that once I'm done gluing and I set it down, you'll see me use my square on the bottom to make sure that I have that amount of space so that it can sit on the outside of the floor. Here I'm just gluing up. I didn't have my buddy here with me this time since this was on my lunch break, one of the days this week. And so I found a scraper tool, and I'm just going as quickly as I can since this glue does set rather quickly, with it being Type Bond 2. So once everything is glued, you'll see me attempting to set the outer wall on top, which was definitely a challenge as one person. So here we go, right over my head, and try and get it as far down as possible, and lining it up. And I take my square on that corner and check and move it to the right spot, get a clamp on it, and then I go to the other side, do the same, and verify throughout the whole thing that it's sitting at the proper height. As I find every single clamp that I have and all the heavy things in the garage to set on there. While I was looking around, I noticed there were some gaps even after I clamped everything down. So thankfully, Ace Hardware is about a 3-minute drive from where I live, maybe 5 minutes, depending on that one light that everyone's got, that one light that takes forever near their place. So needless to say, once I put all the heavy stuff on, I go in and check for all the different gaps, and I ran to Ace to get some more clamps. These are my future tires. I'm not sure if I mentioned that in the last video, but I need it to be lower, my trailer. It's really, really tall. So those are my tires still in their boxes, and actually my new brakes just came, so my next video you'll see me installing, removing and then reinstalling new brakes with a different bolt pattern on them. Since Timbren does not guarantee or does not enforce their warranty when you use an adapter that's not a Timbren adapter, so I had to replace all the brakes. So this is where I came back from Ace, and I put even more clamps on that I bought there. They did not have a lot, so I bought what I could and try to get it on there as quick as possible. Unfortunately, there were still some gaps. As you can see here, I stuck glue in those small little gaps and then clamped the crap out of them on the inside. Here I took a break, and I'm cleaning up those fender mounts that we put on in the last video, or maybe the video before, that my neighbor welded on for me. So once this is all set, you'll see where I realized my mistake. And actually I sent a picture or a message to Tony Latham, the guy that wrote the book basically on how to make teardrop trailers. I sent him a message and I was like, here man, this is what I did. What do you think? And he said, honestly, you should just get new wood and build the wall over again. Well, 5x10 Baltic birch is very expensive, and even just 3 sheets is like almost $300. Definitely the most expensive part of my build was the plywood. Even over the trailer frame, over everything. That was the most expensive part of the build. So I was like, no, I'm going to try and fix this myself. You can see here I'm making the lines for 2 1/4 inches, which will fit the 1/4 inch roof, and then 2-inch spars, which will be insulation in between, and then the roof, the actual the exterior of the roof will sit right on top. So here I am with my router. I made all my lines, and then I realized that I never trimmed this side of it. So I went through with my router, flush trimmed it to get everything all nice and even. And now you can see me marking my lines for 2 1/4 inches across the whole thing. I actually didn't need to do it on that back end or on this because the hatch will have its own situation back there. You'll see in a future video how I'm going to go about that. So here is where I set up my straight edge, and I clamped it down, and I use a router to make my line. And my next issue came when I was like, what's going to be the easiest way for me to cut the rest of this out? So you can see this line here, but you know, it's plywood, it's all glued together, like you're not just pulling that piece off. So I was like, okay, I can use my router, and that'll take me actual hours to complete. Going through it pass after pass after pass until it's flush. And I realized, I'm like, I don't really need it to be exactly flush, because I can use some wood filler to smooth it out, and then my hatch spars will be attached regardless. I mean, I can edit each spar, you know, if necessary. So I did have some trouble with my router here. I mean, I've probably used this probably about 20 times, and I feel like 10 of those times I've had an issue, but eventually I kind of got it figured out. I did multiple passes just because I didn't want to cut in 3/4 inches on the first pass, because that'll burn it out like it did on one of my previous videos. This time went much smoother because I did about 3/8 of an inch and then 3/4 of an inch. So my thought process, as I said, was how am I going to get this all out? And I was like, well, I could use my my multi-tool. And then I realized, well, the multi-tool is not really long enough, and it would take forever to get that. Probably maybe just a little bit shorter amount of time than if I use the router to get through everything. So I decided I'm going to use a circular saw, and I was like, okay, I'll prop this up on its you know, as if it was standing, if it was a wall, and I can go on the top with my circular saw. And I realized that because it's so tall, I'd be on, you know, a step stool, and it's also going to be resting on that 1/4 inch plywood on the bottom, since there is that gap there for the floor. So what I ended up doing was just taking my circular saw and going in from the side. As you can see here, do not do this at home. This is not recommended. It's actually very dangerous. And then I used my multi-tool to kind of go through and clean up the edges. So I did leave a little bit more than an eighth, or excuse me, 1/4 of an inch on the outside wall. But as long as there's something there, enough of a gap to rest my top roof on, and then get my roof spars in. That's all that really matters. So I probably left, I mean, I took 3/4 of an inch out of 1 1/4 inches, so I left around 1/2 of an inch. In some places a little less, because I'm using a circular saw on its side with no guide. So that is how I fixed this mistake. This potential $300+ mistake was by you know, using a router to make my line, and then a circular saw to cut out the rest. And then using the multi-tool to kind of fill in the gaps and fix all the little extra pieces, and where it's too high, where I wiggled the circular saw a little too much. I just took it out with the multi-tool, and that's how it went. The last like 10 seconds, you can see another slow motion of what it all looks like in the end. And, you know, we'll see how it all comes together once I put my walls up, which I'm hoping at this point is in the next week or so. This is definitely a lot more slow going than I thought, especially because I spent all day today, you know, brainstorming and then eventually fixing this ridiculous mistake. but I saved myself a bunch of money, so I'm happy about that. The next wall will be correct, which you'll see in the next video. So here you can see what it looks like once I'm all done. It's not pretty, but it'll work. So like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one in probably next weekend. Take care.